Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar, Monitoring and Fighting Corruption in Nigeria. This is the fifth and final presentation in the World Justice Challenge, A Year of Impact webinar series. And today we are joined by TransparencIT, who are a leading civic tech organization working to promote transparency and citizen engagement in Nigeria. My name is Lauren Kitts. I am the Director of Engagement at the World Justice Project, otherwise known as WJP. So since 2019, WJP has operated the World Justice Challenge, which is a global prize competition that recognizes initiatives that are doing outstanding work to strengthen the rule of law and which show the potential for promising uptake and replication by other rule of law change makers. Last year's competition took place in the summer of 2022, where WJP awarded 5 winning projects an unrestricted cash prize for their excellence in advancing rule of law solutions. So now it's a year later, and WJP has been holding a series of webinars where we're catching up with these winning organizations to see what their work looks like now, how it's evolved, and what these initiatives are doing now in a new way to undertake strengthening the rule of law. Today, we'll be speaking with TransparencIT, which won the World Justice Challenge Anti-Corruption and Open Government Prize for their work to create Nigeria's first public online database of corruption trials and monitor those cases as they move through the courts. This initiative helped to create special courts designated to exclusively handle corruption and other financial crimes cases. And as you'll hear later in the presentation, since their project began, the average duration of corruption trials in Nigeria has been cut by half. So in just a moment, I'm going to turn it over to Abbas Anua, who is the founder and director of TransparencIT, and his colleagues, Ahmed Sani and Frank Ijege, to give a presentation about how that trial monitoring initiative has advanced in the past year, as well as some new developments in their work, which now includes monitoring the trials of journalists and citizen bloggers who have been unjustly detained, as well as some of their work to expand civic space overall in the country by training young advocates on justice and rule of law issues. Following their presentation, we will invite questions from the audience and have a short discussion. So if you would like to ask a question of the panelists, please use the Q&A function that is at the bottom of your screen. Submit your question in writing, and we will answer it after the presentation. Great. So now, Abbas, I'm going to hand it over to you for the presentation. Please.
Great, Lauren, thank you for having us today. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to share our work and to engage global audience on what we do and what we've been able to achieve and the challenges we are facing and how we've been able to impact the anti-corruption activities in the country. So as introduced, my name is Abbas Anua. I'm the founder and director of Transparency Information Technology Initiative, which is popularly known as TransparencIT. With me, I have Ahmed Sani, who is our principal lead, and also Frank Ijege, who is also our legal officer. So I'll be sharing my screen to be able to take us through the presentation on what we've been able to do and how the process we are taking our work through to seeing that we've been able to make reasonable impact in the particularly justice sector and also in advocating, in empowering and inspiring young advocates to advocate for social issues and advance the rule of law and anti-corruption policies and programs in the country. TransparencIT is a civil technology organization that is working to foster courtroom openness in Nigeria and also advance the rule of law and enhance service delivery. We do that through targeted programs that address the anti-corruption issues that we face, particularly issues around trial monitoring and issues also around government services monitoring, and also issues around civic engagement and also training of young advocates, as I said earlier. So our position today is not something that we are proud of in the country, but we believe with efforts from our end and collective effort from other civil society groups and government, will be able to make significant impact to see that we have changed the narration of issues that we face around corruption. As you can see from the screen, Nigeria has been consistently ranked as one of the most corrupt countries in the world. In 2022, we were ranked 154 out of 180 countries and territories, scoring only 24 out of 100. This has left us among the top corrupt countries, and we have also seen this trend of scores in years without any improvement. And this is also been reinforced by many other indexes that we can see around the world. The World Justice Project Rule of Law Index has also ranked Nigeria 118 among 140 countries that were assessed globally, scoring only 0.41 score among in a score of 1. The disturbing part is this has manifested in our day-to-day affairs, in which, if you look at it, the Global Corruption Barometer in 2019, the survey revealed that about 44% of Nigerians said they have paid bribe in the previous year just to access public services. And these issues is not only in one sector, it revolves around different aspects of public lives, and these are just international indexes. And the Nigeria itself, in the recent ranking by the ICPC, which is the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offenses Commission, rank different sectors in the country with their level of corruption. And a lot of them scores has some negative scores. If you can see, the judiciary, which is the sector we are paying more attention to, scored 63 in terms of level of corruption. And this is mostly by surveys in which lawyers reveal that they had to pay bribe in one or two services that they can access in court, or rather judges sometimes ask for bribes in order to give them favorable judgment. This is contained in the ICPC report, so if you can dwell so much in the report, you'll find all these details in the report. So this is the position where we are today, and this, we believe, we have to change the narration, we have to change the system. We have to be able to see that we have improved from the position we are today, not only in the statistic, but also in the lifestyle of the people, and also in the improvement of the living standard of our people in the country. So what we did at TransparencIT was to initiate a project, that is going to address some of these issues. And since founding the organization, we've been able to monitor trials of corruption cases in the country. Basically, we do that in order to access the justice sector in terms of impartiality, competence, and efficiency, and its response to corruption issues in the country. Our effort is targeted at addressing the challenges in the trial of those cases, and also seeing that there is speedy conclusion or disposition of those cases by the judiciary, which in turn we believe is going to reduce the rate of impunity in the country, and also serve as deterrence to people who are perpetrating these acts of corruption. So we have a system where we track those cases, evaluate those cases, and also we do that basically to help us open the courtroom system and also ensure data transparency between what is happening in court and also what is happening outside the court. And we try as much as possible to support citizen actions, citizen participation, to demand for judicial accountability in the sector. This, we believe, that is going to push those cases towards speedy conclusion and also reduce the backlog of cases that we have in the judiciary. And from tracking the cases, we usually obtain data from the court, and those data is what we review and document in the process, and also analyze them based on the some selected criteria that we establish according to the laid down rules and regulations, or rather practice direction of the court, and also the established laws of the country. So we analyze the cases based on those standards, and also presented our review and recommendations to the enforcing authority, in this case, which is the National Judicial Council. We believe that our effort is not going to be enough if there is no change in the system, and the only people that will be able to change the system is the enforcing authority in this case, which is the supervisory body of the judicial arm of government, the National Judicial Council, and they have the responsibility to make reforms in the justice sector. So our effort is targeted at working with them to ensure that some of the anomalies that we've been able to establish will be addressed holistically, in order for this case to have speedy conclusion, and also in order for us to have a judicial system that is free from corruption and respond adequately to the corruption in the country. So within the period, we have established a trial monitoring system that has seen improvement from time to time based on the experiences that we have had during the monitoring process. Our first effort is to identify the courts and also identify the trackers that will be able to enlist their services to see that they track those cases. So when we enlist the trackers, we usually train them on what is expected of them. We have designed a monitoring template that captured all the necessary information that we need, that will establish our process of analysis. And those trackers will be trained on those on that particular template. And if they are trained on the template, we assign them to the necessary courts where they are going to track those cases. So in some instances, what we do, instead of assigning trackers to the court, we assign them to individual cases. Sometimes we pick cases of interest, especially cases of politically exposed persons, high profile cases. We pick cases of interest and assign it to an individual tracker to ensure that no matter the situation, in whatever case, he will be able, whenever that case is coming up, he will be able to attend the court and ensure that he follow the case throughout the hearing process from the beginning to the end, so that we have the data needed where we think there may be conflict of interest, or where we think there may be issues of interest regarding that case. We would like to follow it from beginning to the end, to be able to have data that can inform decisions that would be made about that particular case, and as well as other cases. So we do that to pay particular attention to some cases of interest, and we also do that to pay attention to the court system in general, so that we'll be able to have assess both the outcome of the trial. And after we enlist the trackers and train them and assign them to cases or court, their responsibility now is to go to that court and monitor the case as they are happening live in the court. When the trial is going on, when hearing is taking place, the tracker is expected to be in the court to use the monitoring template, and also fill in the template based on the proceedings of that particular day. So it's what we review and analyze and make up our own recommendations. So like I said, the tracker is going to collect collect the data of that particular case. Then we have a system where we document, a process where it's going to transfer the record from that court. We have developed a back-end system where where the tracker is going to fill in with information regarding that case template and also submit the data. Then after he submit the data will be subject to review and analysis by our desk officers within the office. After it has been reviewed and analyzed, then that particular case will be documented on our own database. So we document the cases so that citizens can have access to information about the cases, and also we refer to it whenever we need information regarding that cases. So on the database, you'll find that all the cases that we have are visualized in a way that you can see information about the trial and information about people that are involved, and you can also see information about the court who are involved in that particular matter in terms of the judge and also in terms of the prosecutors and also the defense counsel. So this visualization is to simplify the data in the way that a layman who is not conversant with the detail of the judiciary, with the key jargons of the judiciary or the legal system, will be able to understand what is happening in the judiciary and will be able to follow up those cases in a layman way, to be able to demand for judicial accountability in his own way. Then we also have a system where if we document those cases, we do online offline engagement. Our online engagement usually is to share information about those cases, especially the simplified infographics or the visualized data, so citizens can be able to see, and we engage them online. And also we provide information about cases that are upcoming so that they will be able to see it. And those that are interested, if they pick a particular case of interest, they will be able to attend the trial on their own without having to wait for information from us. And that will make the members of the judiciary to sit up as they know that they are being watched by the citizen for whichever action they take in terms of a particular case. Then our offline engagement include working with state actors and also working with civil society groups. State actors are those in the judicial arm of government who we believe are responsible for promoting and reforming the court system in order to have a judicial system that is free from corruption, a judicial system that is accountable, and that is also help to see that cases are concluded as and when they are supposed to be concluded. So we engage the National Judicial Council. We also engage the head of courts, and also engage the civil society organizations who will work with them in our effort in order to restore and also promote the integrity of the judicial arm of government. So we also receive feedback from both angles, both those that are in the government and those that are outside the government. Like I said earlier, our trial monitoring process is evolving. It's something that we started. When we started it, we just started it with simple information that we monitor, and over time we have learned that there are gaps in our monitoring exercise, and these are as a result of feedback that we receive both from people in the judicial arm of government and those outside the judicial arm of government who are also stakeholders in the process of ensuring the judicial system is working optimally. So those feedback help us improve our system and help us standardize the process of the tracking to ensure that we did not leave out any information and we did not leave out any vital data that is going to support the process of reforming the justice system. So within the period, we design and develop what we call a corruption cases database. It's the first national corruption cases database in Nigeria that is open and online and can be used and reused by any other person around the world. It has about over 4,000 cases, as you can see, and the database provide information on those cases from the beginning of trial to the conclusion of trial. So the database is for various category of people. Citizens uses the database to visualize those cases that we have, and also use the information from the database to demand judicial accountability. And interestingly, they also use it to conduct due diligence. Due diligence is to say that we have received emails from various stakeholders, from various people around the world who contact us when they are carrying out due diligence on people that they want to, they are going into some certain businesses or transactions with them. They contact us when they make a due diligence search. They find information about those people on our database. And in most cases, they come back to us and ask us, okay, they are about to transact with so-so person, or they are entering business with so-so person. And they are concerned because they saw the name on the corruption cases database, and they want to find out more information about it, as they don't want to fall into a trap of someone that is going to scam them. So in most cases, we advise them and we tell them this is information that is based on what is happening in Nigerian courts, and if they believe they are at a position to lose certain money because of the information they have, they should restrain from the transaction, and if they want to go ahead with it, they can go ahead with it. But this information, this database is not helping them to be able to decide on how to go forward about what we are doing. Then it also help decision makers to build a more transparent and accountable judiciary, because it's the data that we use and analyze the data, then we make recommendations to them. We do what we call a quarterly brief that we submitted to the necessary stakeholders, which they will use to review, and also when they are making some of these reforms, is going to guide them in their own reforms. Then we also have a league of researchers who contact us regularly to in their own research, that they are working to use data. Some of them, they see the gap in the data and they would like additional information. Some of them contact us so we can give them additional information. In most cases, we have had what we call a data deep dive, where some of them participated and they contributed a lot in the upgrading, or rather review and upgrading of the database to the standard we have now. And it has helped us a lot to carry out some data points that we do not have before, which is helping researchers to study more patterns of corruption and explore relationships in those cases, and to help them to be able to make findings properly and accurately in terms of what they do. So our impact so far, we have had opportunities to meet with the then head Chief Judge of the country, Chief Justice of the country, and during our interaction, we have advocated to see that there should be a designated court that is going to promote anti-corruption cases, that is going to try anti-corruption cases. So that we believe is going to help reduce the cases, the time span of the cases in our courts. And this has led to the decision of the Chief Judge to direct all head of courts then to designate the special anti-corruption court to exclusively try corruption cases or handle corruption and financial crime cases in the country. And that has led to establishment of a committee that supervises the anti-corruption, the designated anti-corruption courts. And within the period, within 6 months of within 6 months of establishing the committee, they've been able to review those cases, the impacts of the court within the period, and they were able to report that 324 judgments were delivered within that 6 months, and 12 cases were struck out, and 62 cases were reserved for judgments. Then this has gone a long way to reduce the length of trial of corruption cases in the country. The database we have developed, which has about over 4,500 cases now, has been able to open trials of over 2,000 cases with live updates. And also we have supported about 254 researchers currently with data on corruption cases and prevented over 139 cyber crimes or fraud cases from taking place. This is also, as like I said earlier, is as a result of people reaching out to us regarding due diligence they are carrying out on businesses and transactions they are about to enter with individuals who happen to be on the corruption cases database. So interestingly, this is reducing the rate of cybercrime in Nigeria, because we have had a lot of issues where you see people from outside the country and even within the country are being targeted by cyber criminals trying to defraud them of their funds. So we have cases of cybercrime, a lot of them on our database. And when someone is trying to contact you for any transaction, and if you make a simple search, you'll be able to see the data on his information on our database. And in most cases, you'll be able to make your own decision in terms of restraining from having to transact with him or enter into any business agreement with him. So these are some of the issues that you can find. So within the period, we've been able to have about 28 million reach of both online and offline in terms of our engagement. And when we won the World Justice Challenge award of anti-corruption and open government category, we're having only 21 courts that we cover, 21 states that we cover in the country. And with the award now, we've been able to expand to more states, covering now a total of 27 states. And we are also present in 60 courts in the country, and we have a total of 84 trackers enlisted who are responsible for tracking the cases. Then we have, like I said, we have tracked over 4,500 cases and conducted about 23 radio programs in the country. And so far we have presented 14 monitoring reports to various stakeholders in the judicial arm of government. This report, we usually do them quarterly. It's not something that we do frequently. We usually do them quarterly when we have information about, we gather information about the cases we track, say for instance, from the beginning of January to March. Then we analyze the total of those cases. We identify the violations and also issues and challenges that are involved. Then it's what is going to inform our report. Then we make recommendations at the end of the report, and it's what we submit to the responsible stakeholders. Then we have also supported about 557 researchers who with data on information about corruption cases, and we have also prevented 139 potential frauds from taking place. So 1 year of impact from the World Justice Challenge. This is what we've been able to do. We have expanded our trial monitoring activities from 21 states to 6 more states. Now we are having a total of 27 states, and we are also present in 8 additional courts, and we have also been able to enlist more trackers in those courts, about 12 of them, to be able to track cases. And within the period of that award, we've been able to get more cases from, especially from those states that we have not been present before. We will be able to get additional 1,000 cases from those 6 states, because what we did was to go back to the court and get information about the previous cases so that we'll be able to update our database. So we'll be able to carry along cases that we have not been tracking in those states and add it to cases that are now ongoing in those states. So we have about 1,000 plus cases that we've been able to update on our database from those 6 states. And within the period, we've been able to develop and present 3 monitoring reports. And we have had about 179 direct beneficiaries. From those, we've been able to help with data to carry out their research, and also those we've been able to help with information about the people they are transacting with or they are conducting businesses, so that they will be able to carry due diligence on them. One also challenge we have learned within the period is that there is constant attack on our database. we may not say from which part of the country, but the database has seen constant attack in order to be able to hack into the information we have, or to bring the database entirely down. So what we did is to work with our tech team and also invite people who are experts to be able to enhance the security of the database and to avoid losing such important tool in terms of the fight against corruption in the country. And we have also increased data points on the corruption cases database, so that there is going to be more aspect of information that people can visualize in terms of records of the court, and also individual data points regarding some the cases. So like I said, this is as a result of a deep dive that we have with people who are experts, who are data scientists, and also people who also carry study on the data to guide us on the thing that they see in terms of the gap that we have in the database, so that we'll be able to improve on what we have. And we've been able to initiate a human rights project now to monitor the arrest, detention, and criminal trial of journalists, citizen bloggers in the country. This is also as a result of winning the World Justice Challenge, which has given us more visibility and also connect us to donors and partners. This project was funded by American Bar Association Center for Human Rights, and it's as a result of winning the World Justice Challenge that we were contacted by them during the Nigeria 2023 elections, and they supported this initiative, and we've been able to monitor detention, arrest, and few other trials of journalists who were either assaulted during the 2023 election. So I will leave Ahmad, who is also my colleague, to take us through the project on monitoring the arrest, detention, and criminal trial of journalists and citizen bloggers. So Ahmad, please.
Thank you very much, Abbas, for taking time to explain to us the good work that we all are doing. I'll try to be quick about it. I've noticed we're a bit out of time. Thanks to the visibility that was provided to us by the World Justice Project, we are contacted by the American Bar Association's Center for Justice for a project we're implementing in Nigeria, and we have a conversation with them, and we agreed it was important for us to track arrest, intimidation, prosecution of journalists reporting on the 2023 general elections. If you had followed elections in Nigeria, we know how volatile that period is, especially for journalists. Next slide, please. So the Nigerian Constitution protects the right and freedom of Nigerians, but state actors do not strictly adhere to the provisions of the Constitution. Journalists and activists usually face a lot of challenge when it comes to law enforcement agencies abiding by provisions of the law for them to carry out their duties. If you could see, Nigeria is ranked 129 out of 180 countries in the world in terms of World Press Freedom Index 2022. This is not very good for us. We also ranked 123 out of 165 countries on Human Freedom Index in 2021. And then, of course, we scored 43 out of 100 on the Freedom of the World 2023. The civic space is shrinking in Nigeria. A lot of work is being done to fix that, but that's the current situation where we are. And our own contribution to improving on that is to actually bring out these issues and present them to the public so that this can be used to influence policy for people to advocate to see change. What we did in this project to have case trackers, we built on the existing structure we had for monitoring trial cases, used some of our case trackers, worked with the Nigerian Union of Journalists, as well as other civil society organizations in a few selected states in Nigeria to understand what's happening in terms of a safe space for journalists to report on the 2023 general elections in Nigeria. And out of that, we're able to identify some of them to actually go into the field on election days, during campaigns, and even after election to understand how easy was it for journalists to have access to election environment, to have access to people contesting for political positions, to report truly what is happening in terms of how free the space is for press freedom, for people to report what they are seeing. What we did was we enlisted key sentinels and monitored the election reporting, both on the field and through desk researches. A lot of people were reporting that journalists were arrested here and there. So online, we gathered those cases, analyzed them, and published them on the database that we created. Like I mentioned, we established partnerships with the civil society, the media, even the law enforcement organizations. Some of them were very, very receptive and cooperative, and wanted to actually work with us on this. I'll give you an example of the PRO in the police headquarters at Kano State. He was very cooperative towards us, for us to actually report in terms of how journalists are finding it difficult or easy to report on the 2023 elections. So we documented a few cases of arrest and detention of journalists as well as citizens bloggers reporting the 2023 elections. After the elections, we followed up on some of those cases to find out where they are. Most of those cases did not make it to courts. They were just cases of intimidation. You intimidate a journalist not to report during that period, and then after the elections, you just let that person go. But all these were documented, and appropriate submissions were made to the relevant authorities to ensure that going forward, systems and processes can be put in place to ensure that journalists have free and safer space to report on general elections. Next slide. So far, we've tracked 28 cases on the dashboard. We partnered with 3 police command on this project. We partnered with 23 civil society and media organizations to implement this project. And also we developed a research memoranda on the legal procedure framework for arrest and detention and trial in Nigeria. This is something we published publicly so that people, citizens as well as journalists, can know the standard procedure for arrest in Nigeria. So the moment security agencies are operating outside of that procedure, you can quickly call their attention, or call the attention of your lawyer, or call the attention of other civic players in the street to come to your aid. Next slide, Abbas. So some of the challenges we faced in implementing this project was monitoring the rights and freedom of journalists, activists, and citizens requires dedicated resources, both in terms of personnel and then funding. The project was limited by coverage on available resources. Unlike courts, we have so many polling stations, polling units in Nigeria. So you need more hands to cover such ground. You have more journalists in Nigeria. You have more bloggers, more active citizens. So in order to cover the 36 states, you need a lot of resources, both in terms of fund and in terms of personnel. Activists and journalists face physical risk of attack and assault and threats to their reporting or demanding accountability. This intimidation often leads to self-censorship by journalists, activists, and limited the outcome of the project. So journalists tend to understand when they're in risk, and by default, the first thing they usually do is just to withdraw in order not to expose themselves to unnecessary risk. During the elections, there are instances we saw journalists trying to report foul play in polling units, but the closer they get to report that, they realize that that was not a safe space for them. They could get harmed, and then they pulled back. So such instances made it harder for us to even get closer to also understand and document some of these things. Going forward, we intend to engage and sensitize law enforcement personnel on the protection of rights and freedom of citizens. These are things we intend to share with these law enforcement agencies from what we have learned and make policy recommendations so that going forward, there will be better relationship between journalists and security agencies. Also expand the scope of the project to monitor the civic space in general, not just journalists. The civic space is quite big. Not only journalists play a role in that space, active citizens play a role in that space, as well as every other concerned citizen in the country. So we also want to look at how people's human rights are abused and also track that. And of course, partner with more law enforcement organizations on this. For the purpose of this assignment, work closely more with the Nigerian police force, but then of course we know arrest sometimes goes beyond the Nigerian police force. There are so many security architectures in the country. We have the military, we have the DSS, Department for State Security, and the like. So we also partner with them, sensitize them, and create a more harmonious working environment for journalists in Nigeria. Next slide, Abbas. Okay. To the next projects, the Civic Change Makers projects. All our projects are sort of interlinked with one another. I mentioned the civic space is shrinking in Nigeria, and one of the ways we realize to improve on that is to actually build the capacity of more active citizens, more people interested in improving the civic space, build their capacity to understand the rule of law so that they can go and champion these changes in their various communities and their organizations. Next slide. The civic space is shrinking across many countries in Nigeria. The excesses in government arbitrariness, clampdown on social media, and stereotypes are mainly limiting the civic space and stifling civic participation in Nigeria. One of the reasons why this was exacerbated is lack of support and mentorship and training for citizens, community-led organizations to possess the tools to advocate, understand, and react to these situations. If you build a capacity of more Nigerians know their rights, more Nigerians understand how government works, understand how to advocate, how to engage, the language of government, some of these things would really, really change over time. And that's the angle where TransparencIT is trying to leverage with the Civic Change Makers program. The Civic Change Makers Fellowship Program focuses on individuals who work in the social sector and are dedicated to various civic and social justice issues. The fellowship provides participants practical skills and values for social change, productive engagement, leadership, and diversity. So this is a project, this is a program that we designed. It's a 12 weeks project we designed with different modules, modules on communication, modules on engaging government, modules on public policy, modules on gender and social inclusion, modules on leadership, where practical experiences are being shared by industry experts in terms of how to properly advocate and bring change to your communities. We believe people understand how government works, the better they can engage and demand for better services and inclusion in government. The model for this is through speaker series. Every weekend, we have like a 3-hour session with an experienced person in a certain field to speak to our fellows and explain to them how they can go about their civic improvement processes. Next slide. So TransparencIT conducts this fellowship program in partnership with other organizations like the Governance Lab, the Bond Center for Social Change, and the Northeastern University of Boston in the USA. So that's all about the Civic Change Makers program. That's how we're able to conduct it. I think we have an impact slide in the next slide. So in the lifespan of the Civic Change Makers program, We've received 418 applications. We've trained 25 fellows, out of which 11 were females and 1 was a blind candidate. So far, at the end of each cohort of the fellowship, civic action plans are developed, and we support these fellows to go to their communities and implement those civic action plans. One of those interesting action plans that we are proud of is from one of our fellows called Qasim Mohammed, where he curated and developed a podcast to explain the budgeting process and government expenditure in the local language of Hausa in his community. And community members have understood the budget better because of that, and have engaged policymakers in their states and towards getting more projects that are useful to their society. Some of our fellows work in different organizations. So far, we've been able to train and take back almost 18 fellows back to their respective organizations where they work, and they've been able to leverage those skills into improving the existing work that all the organizations are doing. We've received so far fellows from 14 states in Nigeria, where these 14 fellows have been able to reach 11,000 of their community members in terms of impact. 29,000 people have been engaged so far. And of course, whenever we are doing some of our sessions, we make it public for people to join virtually, because the fellowship program is entirely run on technology. It's completely virtual, run by Google technology. So other participants also of the fellows tend to join in some of our sessions, not all. Next slide, Abbas. Some of the challenges that we face. So after the fellowship program has been completed, civic action plans have been developed by the fellows. They go into their communities to implement these civic action plans. So some of them, due to paucity of funds, the projects are short-term. They are not able to sustain them over a long period of time to continue bringing changes to their communities. So this is also a challenge. And we are also on our own side handicapped to be able to provide them with additional funds to continue bringing change to their communities. The Civic Changemakers Fellowship Program also faced limited funding support, which hampers its ability to increase its reach and impact, access specialized training, resources and expertise, and provide seed funding to viable civil action plans developed by participants. So far, we've been able to only receive to cover fellows from 14 states. We would like to get fellows from all the 36 states in Nigeria. We've been only able to provide these technical skills to 25 fellows who would want to increase the number of participants in our cohorts. And would also like to have the opportunity to have more funding so that we can invest seed funding into those fellows' civic action plans so that they can go into their communities and do more. We'd also like to improve on how rich the amount of experience the fellows receive from our resource persons globally. Next slide, Abbas. So the next thing for us is, as the fellowship program is growing, we want it to, in the future, become an automated fellowship program. After the application process has been done, fellows have been selected. We want the entire process to be digital. What I mean here is we would have an e-learning platform where every active citizen willing to improve their skills in terms of improving the civic space in Nigeria can just go and take that civic change makers course online. We'll design it to be a self-paced course that at the end of the course, one would feel he or she has enough skills to go and implement change in their community. And then of course, partnerships. We want to partner with more universities across the country to improve our curriculum, just to ensure that people understand the rule of law and how to advocate for social justice as well. We've seen amazing civic action plans in the Civic Changemakers program over the course of implementation. There are some interesting ones that we have seen that if we had the opportunity, we would want to incubate them in our accelerator up to a certain stage before we allow them to start flying by themselves. So we would want a situation whereby we are able to do that. But of course, funds tend to hamper how far you can go on this. And then, of course, after we've built the capacity of some of our fellows, we would like to identify internship opportunities for them with some of the organizations that we are affiliated to, so that they can go and practically demonstrate and utilize the skills they have learned into improving the civic space and also improving social justice in Nigeria. Next slide. Oh, that's the last one. So thank you very much, everybody. I think we'll take questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Abbas and Ahmed, for the presentation and for sharing with us how much your work has grown and advanced recently and what you're really doing to address these interlinked issues of corruption, civic space, press freedom. You know, it's clear that you're doing a lot more than just monitoring corruption cases. So we do have a few questions in our remaining time from members of the audience. So one is, so a question about some of the personal danger for the people that you work with who are actually doing the monitoring of the cases themselves. It seems, you know, that the personnel could be exposed to danger just by participating in the monitoring, by attending the trials. You know, is that the case? And if so, what experiences have you had in mitigating security threats to your volunteers and staff?
All right. Thank you very much, Lauren. It's very important. This is a key question. And we have experienced a lot of issues in terms of security issues, and we face a lot of threats. It's not only for the trackers. It's sometimes it's even us that we are not all the times on the field. What we try to do is, first of all, part of our training when we enlist the trackers, we train them about the importance of their security wherever they are. And we try to make our trackers to be anonymous to some extent, that it's not something that they have to make themselves known. A court in Nigeria is an open court. Anyone can walk into the court. So sometimes we tell them to assume the role of a journalist, which is the most common role that you can take in order for you to be able to report on the court processes. So we try to make them to be anonymous and to stay off track, where they can be identified as who they are. We have also had partnerships. The first thing we do when we are going into a state to track cases, our first partnership is to establish partnership with the law enforcement, particularly the police. We let them know, okay, this is the situation on ground. This is the work we do, and this the kind of person that this is the person that is going to be doing this. And in case if you need any support, please, in the event when there is issues, we would like the police to intervene to be able to protect his safety, his life, and whichever property he's using for his own work. So this is some of the steps that we have taken. And additionally, we also face threats about especially our database. Like I said, beyond the cyber attack that we face, especially recently. We have instances where people will send us an email, where people will call us, where they will tell us that they want us to take down their name or their record, their names or their records from the database, because they don't want their record to be available publicly for what they have done before. Sometimes they will even try to say, okay, give us a threat that if we do not do that, they are going to take us to court, or they are going to report us to some agencies and what have you. In most cases, what we usually tell them are, this is a public record. Court record is a public record, and we have every right to publish this record, because it's the information from the court and nothing more. So in order to prevent ourselves from any legal issue and to prevent ourselves from any problem, what we try to do as much as possible is to have the right data on our database, so that whichever way you go around it, you'll find that the information we have is the information that is going to be that we are going to find in the public code. So this is basically how we go about preventing ourselves from the risks of people that we work against them sometimes, and also how we protect our work in terms of the data that we have on our database.
Great, thank you so much. And it's a very important topic and a very important component of the work, considering corruption as an issue that usually thrives in the dark, away from public eyes. Maybe one more question, because I know we're almost out of time. So do you work whatsoever with anti-corruption agencies? You didn't mention them among the stakeholders in the presentation, but have they taken any interest in your work, and have you had any collaboration?
Yeah, very important. We work with 3 major anti-corruption agencies: the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offenses Commission. We are also at the verge of including the data of the Code of Conduct Bureau. If you look at the cases we have on our database, we have like about a few cases of Code of Conduct Bureau. We've been having challenges, and we have started a conversation with them during our deep dive, which we invited them, and we are trying to see how we are also going to work with them to see that we expand the scope of the database to also carry out cases of people who are not declaring their assets, who have cases of non-declaration of asset, and also abuse of offices who are in government. So we have this working partnership with the EFCC and the ICPC in the course of our work. Particularly, these are the major 2. And one important thing is that beyond some of the issues, like we have in each state, we try to have 2 trackers because of limited resources. We try to have 2 trackers in each state that we are present. And from the 2 trackers, in some instances, they do not cover all they will not be able to cover all the cases that are ongoing at that particular time. You'll find that if you go to court, you may have court 1, court 2, court 3, court 4, and up to. And in most cases, you'll have like 3 judges who are presiding over corruption matters. Then you have 2 sentinels or case trackers who will be in only 2 courts, and they will not be able to be in the other courts. So our partnership with the anti-corruption agencies is to be able to work with them for cases that we are not present in court. We'll be able to obtain the information from them, and we'll scan through those information. We review it, and if it meets our own standard of reporting, it meets the standard of our own case tracking template, then we'll be able to input those cases, document it on the database, and also put it part of our review. So we have partnerships with those anti-corruption agencies, and we are also looking to expand with the Code of Conduct Bureau.
Great, thank you. That's also very interesting to hear. Unfortunately, we're out of time. But I just want to sincerely thank Abbas and Ahmed for the presentation, for TransparencIT, for sharing this information with us, and your expertise in this topic. We've have a lot of interest in this webinar, and from colleagues who've joined. So I'm sure there'll be lots of follow-up from this conversation. And also to the audience joining, thank you so much for your interest in this topic. If you would like to return to this webinar or to share it, the recording is going to be posted on WJP's website and our YouTube channel. So we can, this conversation can live on beyond just today. And as I mentioned, this webinar was the 5th and final installment in our World Justice Challenge Year of Impact webinar series, and all of the webinars are on our YouTube channel. So if you have interest in any of the topics that our challenge winners have covered, we welcome you to visit that, as well as blogs that we're going to be posting on our website about all these really incredible initiatives. So with that, I'm going to close it out. So Ahmed and Abbas, thank you so much again. And also thank you to everyone who joined us and for your interest. Take care, everyone.